The Omnivore's Dilemma, A Natural History of Four Meals, by Michael Pollan. Introduction. What if I told you that you, right now, are made of corn? I don't mean that in some poetic philosophical sense. I mean it literally. Scientists today can take a tiny clipping of your hair, place it in a machine, and prove that the very carbon atoms building your body come overwhelmingly from a single plant, corn. One biologist, after doing this for North Americans, put it bluntly, "We look like corn chips with legs." How is that possible? How did a single tropical grass, originally from Central America, come to dominate our landscape and our bodies so completely that it's in the steak we eat, the soda we drink, and even the battery that powers your remote control? This is the mystery that the brilliant writer Michael Pollan sets out to solve in his landmark book, The Omnivore's Dilemma. This book, which became a New York Times bestseller and has shaped the way millions of people think about food, starts with what seems like the simplest question in the world. What should we have for dinner? But as Pollan discovered, and as you're about to find out, that simple question has become unbelievably complicated. We live in a time of incredible confusion about food, a time he calls a national eating disorder, where we need journalists and scientists to tell us what to eat. Today, we're going to join him on an incredible journey. We're going to pull back the curtain on our food system and trace our meals all the way back to the earth they came from. I promise you, by the end of our time together, you will never look at your dinner plate, the supermarket, or the world in the same way again. We're going to follow the path of three distinct food chains: the massive industrial system that feeds most of us, a beautiful, grass-based farm that offers a different way, and finally, the oldest food chain of all, the one our bodies were designed for. This isn't just a summary of a book. It's a journey to the heart of how we live. So, let's begin. Book summary. Our journey starts in the most familiar and yet most mystifying of places, the American supermarket. Imagine walking through those sliding glass doors. You're greeted by a vibrant landscape of nature's bounty, glistening red apples, leafy green vegetables, and every color of fruit imaginable. It feels like an incredible display of biodiversity, a testament to the variety of nature. But as Michael Pollan tells us, much of this is an illusion. He decided to become a detective, to trace the items in a shopping cart all the way back to the soil they came from. He expected this journey to lead him to countless different farms and fields all over the world. But no matter which path he took, whether he was tracing a box of Twinkies, a bottle of ketchup, or a shrink-wrapped steak, his journey always ended in the exact same place, a giant field of American corn. That vast and colorful supermarket, with its 45,000 different products, rests on a surprisingly narrow foundation. And the king of that foundation is Zia maize. Corn. Think about it. The steer that becomes your steak? It was fed corn. The chicken that lays your eggs? Corn. The farm salmon? Increasingly, it's being taught to eat corn. But it goes so much deeper. Pick up almost any processed food. The sweeteners, like high fructose corn syrup, are from corn. The modified cornstarch that holds a chicken nugget together is from corn. The corn flour in the batter? The corn oil it's fried in. All corn. Even the citric acid that keeps it fresh is derived from corn. More than a quarter of all items in the supermarket now contain corn. So how did this happen? How did corn conquer our world? To understand, we have to travel to a farm in Iowa, to a man named George Naylor, who farms 470 acres of corn and soybeans. His story is the story of modern American agriculture. When his grandfather farmed the same land, it was home to dozens of different plants and animals: hay, oats, cattle, pigs, and chickens. The farm largely fed itself in a closed loop. The crops fed the animals, and the animal manure fed the crops. The energy came from the sun. But today, George Naylor's farm is a monoculture. It's a factory for producing two crops, corn and soybeans. This transformation was made possible by a monumental shift that happened after World War II. Munitions plants that made explosives from ammonium nitrate found a peacetime purpose: chemical fertilizer. This was a turning point for humanity. Before this, the amount of life the Earth could support was limited by the amount of nitrogen that bacteria and lightning could naturally create. But a German chemist named Fritz Haber had figured out how to pull nitrogen from the air using immense pressure and heat, a process powered by fossil fuels. Suddenly, fertility wasn't a gift of the sun, but something you could buy in a bag. We were no longer eating from the sun. We had begun to eat oil. This new chemical fertility, combined with incredibly productive hybrid corn seeds, allowed farmers like George Naylor to grow staggering amounts of corn, far more than anyone actually needed. The government stepped in, not to slow production, but to encourage it. Under Secretary of Agriculture Earl Butz in the 1970s, farm policy was redesigned to create a flood of cheap corn. Instead of supporting farmers, the government began subsidizing every single bushel of corn they could grow. This created a massive surplus, a mountain of cheap calories. And in nature, a surplus never lasts long. Something always evolves to consume it. In this case, what evolved was the industrial food system as we know it. The main consumer of this corn mountain became livestock. And this brings us to the next leg of our journey, the feedlot. To understand how corn becomes meat, Pollan did something extraordinary. He bought his own steer. A young calf, number 534, born on a beautiful grassy ranch in South Dakota. For the first 6 months of his life, steer 534 lived as a cow is meant to live. He grazed on a rich salad bar of prairie grasses, living alongside his mother. Cows and grass have one of nature's most elegant, co-evolutionary relationships. A cow's digestive system, its incredible 4-chambered stomach called the rumen, is a fermentation tank designed to turn grass, which we can't digest, into high-quality protein. The cow nourishes the grass with its manure, and the grass nourishes the cow. It is a perfect, solar-powered system. So why did steer 534 ever leave? In a word, speed. An animal raised on grass takes longer to reach slaughter weight, maybe 4 or 5 years in his grandfather's day. But the industrial system can get a steer from 80 pounds to over 1,100 pounds in just 14 months. The fuel for this incredible speed is corn. At 6 months old, steer 534 was taken from his mother and sent to a feedlot in Kansas, a concentrated animal feeding operation, or CAFO. This is a city of cattle, with tens of thousands of animals living in crowded pens, standing in a sea of their own manure. Here, an animal exquisitely designed to eat grass is forced to eat a diet of corn, a diet that makes it chronically sick. A corn diet turns the cow's neutral rumen acidic, causing a kind of constant heartburn that can lead to a host of diseases, including bloat, acidosis, and liver abscesses. In fact, 15 to 30% of feedlot cattle are found at slaughter to have abscessed livers. The only reason this system works is because the animals are preemptively treated with a constant diet of antibiotics. This leads to the evolution of antibiotic-resistant superbugs, a threat not just to the animals, but to us. Even more disturbing, the acidic environment of a corn-fed cow's gut has created a new, deadly strain of bacteria, E. coli 0157:H7. Unlike normal E. coli, this strain can survive the acid in our own stomachs and cause fatal kidney failure. We've created this monster by feeding an animal a food it was never meant to eat. Steer 534's short, unnatural life represents the triumph of industrial logic over the logic of evolution. His journey, and the journey of millions of animals like him, ends on a kill floor, a place so hidden from public view that the author wasn't even allowed to witness it. All this, to turn a mountain of cheap corn into slabs of inexpensive meat. But not all the corn goes to feedlots. A huge portion of it takes another path, one that leads to the center aisles of the supermarket. This is the journey into processed food. About a fifth of the corn harvest is sent to massive factories called wet mills, A wet mill is like an industrial version of digestion. It takes a kernel of corn and, through a complex process of soaking, grinding, and spinning, breaks it down into its fundamental building blocks. The germ is pressed for corn oil. The fiber becomes vitamins. But the real prize is the endosperm, a huge packet of starch. This starch is corn's greatest contribution to processed food. Chemists have learned to transform these long chains of carbohydrates into hundreds of different compounds. This is where we get everything from citric acid and ethanol to the most valuable product of all, high fructose corn syrup, or HFCS. In 1980, Coca-Cola began switching from sugar to the slightly cheaper HFCS, and by 1984, both Coke and Pepsi had switched over completely. This should have been a simple substitution, but it wasn't. The price of sweetener plummeted. And what did the soda companies do? They didn't just lower the price of a can of soda. They supersized it. The logic was simple. Since the raw material was now dirt cheap, they could sell a much larger portion for only a few pennies more. The 8-ounce bottle became the 20-ounce bottle, then the 32-ounce, then the 64-ounce big gulp. We were suddenly drinking soda on a scale never before imagined. This cheap, abundant corn sweetener has found its way into everything: ketchup, bread, hot dogs, salad dressing. This flood of cheap calories from corn is a key reason for our modern obesity epidemic. Since the 1970s, when cheap food policies were enacted, American farmers have produced 500 extra calories per person, per day. And we, heroically, are eating about 200 of them. Our bodies, designed for a world of scarcity, are hardwired with the thrifty gene that tells us to feast whenever we can. In a world of 24/7 fast food abundance, that ancient wisdom has become a curse. The journey of the industrial food chain culminates in a meal Pollan shares with his wife and son at a McDonald's, eaten in a moving car. A cheeseburger, chicken McNuggets, fries, and a large Coke. On the surface, it looks like a meal of variety: beef, chicken, potatoes. But when a sample of this meal is put through a mass spectrometer, the same machine used to analyze the carbon in his hair, the truth is revealed. The soda is 100% corn. The milkshake, 78% corn. The salad dressing, 65%. The chicken nuggets, 56%. The cheeseburger, 52% corn. The incredible variety of the fast food menu is an illusion. We are not omnivores choosing from a wide menu. We are, in a very real sense, corn's koala. We are processed corn, walking. This is the industrial food chain. It's efficient, it's cheap, and it has conquered our world. But as we've seen, its cheapness is an illusion. The true costs are hidden, paid by the environment, by our health, and by the animals. Which leads to the next question. Is there a better way? To find out, our journey takes us from the black flat earth of Iowa to the rolling green hills of Virginia's Shenandoah Valley, to a place called Polyface Farm. The man who runs this farm, Joel Salatin, is a self-described Christian conservative libertarian environmentalist lunatic farmer, and he doesn't call himself a chicken farmer or a cattle rancher. He calls himself a grass farmer. Everything at Polyface is built on grass. His farm is the mirror opposite of George Naylor's. Where Naylor's farm is a monoculture, Salatin's is a polyculture. Where Naylor's runs on fossil fuel, Salatin's runs on solar energy. And where Naylor's farm produces waste, Salatin's farm has no waste at all. This is because Polyface is modeled not on a factory, but on a natural ecosystem. It is a beautiful, intricate dance of symbiosis. It begins with the cows. Salatin practices management-intensive grazing, moving his cattle to a fresh paddock of grass every single day. They graze the grass down, fertilize it with their manure, and move on. This mimics the way bison once grazed the prairies, and it keeps both the cattle and the grass incredibly healthy. But here is where the genius begins. 3 or 4 days after the cows leave, Joel brings in the eggmobile, a portable henhouse for his laying hens. Why? Because in nature, birds always follow herbivores. The hens act as the sanitation crew. They descend on the cowpats and, with a frantic dance, scratch them apart to eat the fly larvae and grubs that have fattened inside. This simple act accomplishes three things at once. First, the hens get up to a third of their diet for free, turning pests into high-protein food. Second, they sanitize the pasture, breaking the life cycle of parasites that would otherwise afflict the cows, eliminating any need for chemical wormers. And third, they spread the cow manure perfectly across the field, fertilizing the grass. It is a perfect, closed loop. Cow patties are transformed into delicious, nutrient-dense eggs. The dance continues. The broiler chickens live in floorless, portable pens that are moved 10 feet every morning onto fresh grass. They too get a portion of their diet from grass and bugs, and their nitrogen-rich manure hyper-fertilizes the pasture. Even the pigs have a role. In the winter, the cattle live in a barn on a deep bedding of wood chips and straw. Joel scatters a little corn into this bedding. The corn ferments all winter long. Then, in the spring, he brings in the pigs. He calls them his pigerators. In their ecstatic quest for the alcoholic corn, the pigs perfectly turn and aerate the entire pile, transforming it into beautiful, rich compost that will be spread back onto the pastures. The pigs are not just happy, they are doing the work of a machine, and they love doing it. This is a farm built on respecting the pigness of the pig and the chickenness of the chicken. It is a system of radical complexity, where every species, by expressing its natural instincts, benefits the others. This is the efficiency of nature, not of a factory. And yet, as hopeful as this vision is, the story of alternative food isn't so simple. The word we associate with this better way of farming is organic, but as the organic movement has grown into an $11 billion industry, it has started to look more and more like the industrial system it set out to replace. Pollan calls this big organic, or supermarket pastoral. He takes us to meet Rosie, the free-range organic chicken sold at Whole Foods. Her life, it turns out, is not so different from a conventional chicken's. She lives with 20,000 other birds in a giant shed. And the free range? It's a tiny patch of grass accessible through a small door that remains shut for the first 5 or 6 weeks of her 7-week life. The chickens almost never go outside. We learn that organic milk can come from giant factory farms where thousands of cows live in dry, grassless lots, eating certified organic grain shipped from hundreds of miles away. The USDA rules, stretched and bent by large corporations, simply require access to pasture, a standard so vague it has become almost meaningless. The industrial mindset has learned to imitate the pastoral ideal. The food is grown without synthetic pesticides and fertilizers, which is an undeniable environmental gain. But the logic of the factory, specialization, centralization, and economies of scale, remains. An organic TV dinner can contain 31 ingredients from a half-dozen states and 2 countries, including natural grill flavor. So, even here, in the world of organic food, the omnivore's dilemma persists. The labels tell a story, but that story doesn't always match the reality. This leaves one final food chain to explore. The oldest, shortest, and most fundamental of them all. This is the personal food chain, the path of the hunter-gatherer. To explore this, Pollan sets himself a monumental challenge: to prepare a meal using only ingredients that he has hunted, gathered, or grown himself. For a modern person who has never fired a gun and was taught to fear wild mushrooms, this is no small task. This journey is not about finding a practical way to feed ourselves. There are too many of us, and not enough wild nature left, for that. Instead, this is a philosophical quest, to see what it feels like to eat in full consciousness of everything involved. To take direct, personal responsibility for the life and death that is part of every meal. He finds a guide, a Sicilian blacksmith named Angelo Garo, a man who lives his life by the rhythm of the seasons, hunting boar, foraging for mushrooms, and making his own wine. The first step is learning to see the world through a forager's eyes. A simple walk in the woods becomes an exercise in hungry attention. The ground, once just a backdrop, becomes a text filled with signs, the freshly turned soil where a pig has rooted, the subtle lift in the leaf litter that betrays a hidden mushroom. The mushroom hunt throws the omnivore's dilemma into its sharpest relief. How do you know what's safe? You can read books, but as he discovers, the most reliable knowledge comes from a trusted person. He eats his first wild chanterelle only after Angelo, his guide, hands it to him. Trust, community, and shared experience? These are humanity's oldest tools for solving the dilemma. But the heart of this quest is the hunt. He decides to hunt a wild pig, a feral animal considered a pest in California. The experience is transformative. Walking through the forest with a rifle, his senses become unbelievably sharp. The world grows louder and brighter. He describes a feeling of being utterly present, a state of mind he likens to meditation, as if his brain chemistry has shifted to that of his hunter-gatherer ancestors. After one failed attempt where he isn't ready when the moment comes, he finally gets his shot. The moment of the kill is a chaotic explosion of adrenaline and emotion. He feels an unexpected surge of pride, relief, and even gratitude, not remorse. But that feeling is quickly complicated. The process of dressing the animal, of turning a living creature into meat, is messy and difficult. He's confronted with the animal reality of the pig, its internal organs so much like his own. This triggers a deep, primal feeling of disgust, another of the omnivore's ancient safety mechanisms. Later, he receives a photo of himself, kneeling behind the dead animal with a huge, proud grin on his face. The image shocks him. It seems obscene. He is ashamed of his own joy. This, he realizes, is the hunter's burden. It is an experience that is both exhilarating and shameful, beautiful and brutal. It is not an easy or simple thing, and that is precisely its value. It forces you to confront the reality of eating meat, to look at it squarely, without the comfortable distance that the supermarket provides. Finally, all the elements are gathered. The wild pig. The morels from a burned forest in the Sierras. Fava beans and lettuce from his garden. Wild yeast captured from the air for bread. Cherries gathered from a neighbor's overhanging tree. He invites his guides, Angelo, and the others who helped him, to the table. This is the perfect meal. Not because the food itself was flawless, but because every single ingredient had a story, and every story could be told in the first person by someone at the table. This meal was perfectly transparent. He knew exactly where it came from, how it lived and died, and what it truly cost, in effort, in energy, and in life. It was a meal fully paid for, one that left no hidden debts to the environment or to the future. Sitting at that table, sharing stories and food that was so deeply connected to the world around them, the meal became more than just food. It was a ritual. A way of saying grace without words. And in that moment, the journey comes full circle. The initial question, "What should we have for dinner?" was never about finding a single right answer. It was about recovering the connections that the industrial food system has worked so hard to make us forget. Whether we are eating a fast food burger made of corn, a pastured chicken raised on grass, or a wild pig from the forest, we are eating the body of the world. The omnivore's dilemma isn't a problem to be solved once and for all. It's a relationship to be managed, and the basis of that relationship, Pollan suggests, should be knowledge, respect, and gratitude. Commentary. So, what do we take away from this incredible journey? For me, the most powerful lesson in the omnivore's dilemma is not that one food chain is good and another is evil. It's that our food choices are not just personal. They have profound consequences that ripple out into the world, shaping landscapes, communities, our health, and the lives of other species. The book is a powerful reminder that we have been systematically taught to be ignorant about our food, The industrial food chain thrives on opacity. It puts up walls, literally, around feedlots and slaughterhouses, so we don't have to look. It replaces stories with barcodes and relationships with price tags. And in this ignorance, we become complicit in a system that is often destructive, unhealthy, and inhumane. But the book is also incredibly hopeful. It shows us that there are other ways. The image of Joel Salatin's farm, that beautiful, complex ballet of animals and grass, is a powerful vision of what agriculture could be, a system that heals the land instead of depleting it. It reminds us that nature's logic, a logic of diversity and symbiosis, can be far more efficient and resilient than the brittle, simplified logic of a factory. And the final journey, the hunt for the perfect meal, teaches us the most profound lesson of all, what it feels like to be fully accountable for what we eat. Most of us will never hunt our own boar or forage for our own mushrooms, and that's not the point. The point is to understand what is at stake. To remember that every meal has a history, and that we are a part of that history. So how can you apply this in your own life? It doesn't require a radical change overnight. It starts with a simple shift in consciousness. First, just look. The next time you are in the supermarket, pick up one item you buy regularly, a box of cereal, a jar of sauce, and just read the ingredients. See if you can spot the corn. Ask yourself, where did this come from? That simple act of curiosity is the first step out of ignorance. Second, connect. If you can, visit a local farmer's market. You don't have to buy anything. Just walk around. Pick one farmer and ask them a question. How do you grow your tomatoes? Or what do your chickens eat? Forging that one small human connection begins to rebuild the trust that the industrial system has broken. And third, participate. Try to cook one meal this week completely from scratch. Not from a box or a can, but from whole, recognizable ingredients. It doesn't have to be fancy. But the simple act of transforming raw ingredients into a meal reminds you that you are not just a passive consumer. You are a creator. You are a participant in the great chain of life. Ultimately, this book is a powerful call to consciousness. It teaches us that eating is an agricultural act, and a political one too. Every dollar you spend on food is a vote for the kind of world you want to live in. Do you want to vote for a world of monoculture and pollution, or for a world of diversity, health, and respect for nature? The choice is ours, 3 times a day. That was a summary of The Omnivore's Dilemma by Michael Pollan. We've explored the main pathways of our food today, but I'll be honest with you, a summary can only take you so far. The real magic of this book happens when you read it for yourself. It's in the quiet moments of reflection, when one of Pollan's beautifully told stories or a simple, profound observation makes you pause and see your own life in a new light. This summary is designed to help you decide if this book is worth your time and attention. If anything we've discussed today has sparked your curiosity, I truly encourage you to grab a copy. Reading it isn't just about learning facts, it's an experience that can genuinely change your relationship with the food you eat and the world you inhabit. Also, if you found this summary valuable and it gave you a new perspective, please show your support by hitting that like button and subscribing to the channel. That way, you won't miss our next journey into another life-changing book. Let's continue to explore these powerful ideas and grow together.